Perfect. I feel like I should have pulled up some festive holiday tunes, but I didn't. Didn't do that.
That's okay. Hello, everyone. Excited you're with us. I see we've got a good group rolling in, so we'll just wait a couple of seconds here to make sure that we've got our large group this afternoon. Excited to have you all here. Excited to have Kacey with us, talking about this great presentation.
I'm so happy to be here. And so happy. I can't believe it's December.
I know. And real fast, Kacey, I think we might want to not minimize, but decrease your slide a little bit. It looks like it's cutting off just a little bit.
Let me see.
A little.
Let me stop share for just a moment and see how it's set up. Let's see if this helps.
Much better. Okay.
And if I move it over here, I wouldn't think it would change things, but let me know if it does.
It just minimized just a little bit. So if you just over just a little bit. Yes, there we go.
I see. I see. All right. We have too many windows open over here on my computer.
All good. But we still have some people rolling in, but I'm going to go ahead and get started so that we can give it over to Kacey. So hello and welcome to today's webinar, Stress-Free Exhaustion-Proof Holidays, even in 2020 for the Overachiever. Brought to you by your Vanderbilt Alumni Association. I'm Sarah Whitney Anderson, and I'm one of the Assistant Director for Alumni and Student Engagement, and I'm so excited we could be together this afternoon. Today's webinar will last around 45 minutes with time at the end for questions. You can also submit them all during the presentation. Kacey loves an interactive presentation, so feel free to use that chat box to send us any conversational notes or questions if you have them. We'll also be recording today's webinar, so you will see that later uploaded to our View Connect webinar page along with in our email following this webinar later this week. I'm so excited to have our very own Kacey Cardin back to help us get ready for the holidays. Kacey Cardin, PCC, is an executive and leadership coach, facilitator, and recent TEDx speaker. She works with executives and top performers in multinational finance and law firms, small businesses, and creative leaders in TV, film, sports, and music industries. Her clients are thriving at companies including Google, ABC, and Fox News, where they impact the world on a daily basis through politics, the Broadway stage, hit TV shows, and their own TED Talks. A graduate of Vanderbilt University and the University of Tennessee, Kacey worked for a decade as a professional opera singer before training as a coach. That is just her shortened bio, but you can see much more about her on our Career Coaches page. But I'm more than happy to turn it over to Kacey now and hear what she has to tell us today.
Thank you, Sarah Whitney. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. I am very excited and very passionate about this particular topic, especially the overachievers. In addition to everything Sarah Whitney so kindly just shared, I also am a lifelong procrastinating overachiever and a recovering overwhelm addict. I always tell people my nickname as a kid was 10 pounds. I was perpetually late, running from one extracurricular to another. And I had a choir teacher who one day kind of had a meltdown on me and said, "You are always trying to fit 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag." And from then on, my parents, my friends, my teachers all called me 10 pounds. I recently decided to reframe that 10 pounds as 10 pounds of gold instead of crap, you know, for those of you who are out there trying to fit your own 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag. But regardless, there's only so much that any of us can carry at any given time. And the holidays and the end of the year are definitely a time when we try to carry a bit more than might actually serve us or the people we care about. I think a lot of us envision holidays that include things like this, festive vibes, and some of us are taking vacations or having playtime, spending time with friends and family and loved ones and celebrating. And I think for a lot of us, we think of this time of year as a time to be closer to family and to spirit. So these are our ideals and our expectations, and then we end up experiencing something that looks a little more like this. work stress, overburdened, overwhelmed, hair on fire, freaking out, getting in arguments and fights over little things with the very people that we want to be loving and celebrating with. I'm curious for all of you. I'm going to stop this share for a moment. I'm curious. Let's actually get a poll up. What tend to be your biggest stresses over the holidays, or what is your biggest holiday stressor? So take a moment to fill this out, if you will. We'll put this up for just a few. Oh yeah. Oh, look at them coming, rolling in. Yeah, a lot of expectations in one place or another, whether it's the expectations of your family or the expectations you put on yourself. A lot of pretty predictable stressors here. And then of course, this year we have the pandemic stress on top of all of that. So a lot of energy in this space. Let's see, we got 83% of the votes, and let's see what we got, what wins out here. So curious. Okay, family expectations. Great. So we're actually going to talk, a little bit about how that impacts us and what we can do to keep that from getting in the way of the holidays that we want to have. So let's see here. Let me shift screens back over. What I notice for a lot of us, we'll just go ahead and get a foundational piece in here. And I'm going to, as I talk through some of these tools, I invite you to follow along, like have a piece of paper in front of you. This next slide I'm going to show you is something that you can draw your own personal version of. What I notice about how the holidays tend to go for a lot of us is that there is a pretty predictable cycle that we get into, especially with overwhelm and burnout. Let me share this here. Now, we all have our own unique version of it, but it typically looks something like this. So we start out, over here to the far left, we start out with, life is good. And we're really excited. We're looking forward to the holidays. And this is not just holiday specific. This happens all year round. We say yes to some things. Then we say yes to more and more things. And we're excited about it, but it all kind of starts to pile up. For a lot of us, we start to feel a little bit out of control. We can feel the water rising, and we start to feel like, ooh, I may be in over my head. Those expectations get higher and higher. That pressure to perform, that pressure to get it all handled and to get it all right just keeps rising until we get to whatever our boiling point is. And this is the moment where it all comes to a head and we feel like we're just going to explode. Overwhelm reaches its peak. What this typically looks like for me is that I get pretty cranky. I feel like there's not enough time in the day and there's not enough support around me. I suddenly feel like I'm having to do everything all by myself and I'm getting pretty mad about it. Another thing that tends to happen in my particular version of this is that I'm getting things handled, but they're all getting handled at about 70% capacity. So there are balls being dropped. I'm having to, apologize for this or make up for something over here. And it just feels like getting spread too thin. And every single time I'm in that place, and I imagine you might too, I say, I am never going to do it this way again. It's never going to go this way again, right? What then happens is that we get it all handled, especially the overachievers. We get it all done somehow. People around us look at it and say, oh my gosh, how did you do all of that? And they're sort of horrified and impressed at the same time. And then after that point, there's a crash. We might get sick. Our bodies have had enough, or maybe we're just sick of ourselves or sick of other people. And so we withdraw a little bit. We may be resentful. We may be upset. We may be mad at other people for not stepping up or stepping in. We might be angry at ourselves that we let it go that way again, or disappointed because we look at some of what we created. And while the people outside of us say, wow, that was really amazing, you did a great job, we know that if we had been just a little less overwhelmed, we would have been able to kick it up a notch. So there's a little bit of this crashing, beating yourself up thing that tends to happen. After that, there's a recovery period. We make it through. And then we look back and we say, wow, look at all that stuff I did. We feel proud of it. on the slide, you can see, now I know that I am indeed a superhero. It reinforces that, yes, I am an overachiever and proud. And then we're back to life is good. And then we start it all over again. So as you're reading through this and as you're taking this in, take a moment to draw your own cycle. Start with life is good. Notice what tends to occur during your buildup, and then what happens at your boiling point. What is that experience like? What do you tend to say? What do other people see when they look in at your overwhelm? How do you show up in the world? What are you doing or not doing? And then what happens after that boiling point? What's the fallout like? And what's the recovery period like? As I said, this happens all year long on some level, unless we mindfully and intentionally choose to get off of this merry-go-round at some point. It, of course, happens during the holidays as well, but the holidays come with some additional components under the surface. If you look at this cycle, you might be able to see what's operating in the background that has you make some of the decisions and take some of the actions you take. So for example, we say yes to something because we're excited about it and we genuinely love that thing. And then we may say yes to more things because we feel expected to do so, or we feel obligated. We feel like we want to impress people, or we want to be liked, or we want to be lovable, or we want to be the best at whatever our job is. This shows up with our families. It shows up at work, shows up in our social circles. It shows up everywhere. So make notes for yourself about what's really going on under the surface for you. A frequent one I hear, if you need a little help to jog your thoughts here, a lot of people right before the boiling point, what they say is happening under the surface is, I know I need help, but I don't know how to ask for it, or I typically refuse to ask for it. I feel like I need to do it all by myself. Sometimes that's a perfectionist thing where nobody can do it as good as I can, so I have to do it all by myself. And sometimes it can even be a feeling of, I need to prove this. I need to prove to myself or other people that I've got this. So be really honest with yourself here and be very compassionate with yourself, because some of these things are, so this is the stuff that runs in the background that we don't always want to take a look at, but they are driving our actions. So whether you decide to be aware of them or not doesn't change the fact that they exist. So this cycle, and you writing it down in this way, is kind of your own little cheat sheet, so that at any point in this cycle, you can choose to step off of it. You might add some little helpful hints to yourself, like right before the boiling point, draw a little arrow that says, here's where I have to ask for help. Or maybe long before that, even better, right? Like 2 steps before that, say, this is where I need to ask for help. And usually I don't realize I'm going to need help yet. I'm not to that part in my cycle where I'm to the boiling point. So start to write yourself some little notes about how you can disrupt this. It's important all year, but with the holidays, here are some of the things that I tend to hear the most that are running in the background and driving some of these overwhelm and burnout cycles and decisions. And it aligns with what a lot of you put on that poll, the pressure to overspend, or what sort of financial decisions come along with the holidays. There's also trying to accomplish all of the year's goals in the last month of the year. We start to look back on the year and we say, oh, I said I was going to, finally finish writing that thing, or I said I was going to take that trip, or whatever it is. Obviously, this year comes with some different rules, right? But trying to smush in a year's worth of goals and activities in the last 30 days of the month, that is a lot of additional pressure that I don't think anybody actually needs. A big one, feeling responsible for everyone else around you, whether it's feeling responsible for their joy or feeling responsible for the tasks. That's one that shows up with leaders in the workplace quite often, is that you feel responsible for making sure everyone else is getting done what they said they would get done. And it leaves you feeling like your energy is just scattered all over the workplace. Keeping up with the Joneses, needing to keep up with other people, seeing, the lights on that house look amazing. I want my lights to look like that guy. Things like that, things that just create some stories that have us make decisions that put even more pressure on us. So comparison, and then of course, overachievement's best friend, perfectionism. Anytime perfectionism is in your space, it is likely going to create some holiday stress. So what are you all seeing about your own version of this? And if you would, feel free to put some things in the chat here. What do you notice about your own overwhelm cycle and how this shows up? What are some new awarenesses that you might have for yourself as a result of getting this down on paper and seeing your own patterns and seeing what drives it? More importantly, what do you see that you could do at each step to disrupt the cycle? Like I said, certain places to ask for help, or here's the moment where I know I need to say no to at least one thing. Some steps like that that you could put in for yourself. When we're caught up in our predictable automatic cycles, we really lose sight of what we want the year to be about. So let's talk a little bit about that. If you follow my work at all, you might be aware that I make a distinction between intention and intention. And I'm going to share my screen again so that you see the difference between these words, intention or intention. I think of your intention as an inner tension. When you live from this place, life of course feels tense. This is your shoulds. These are the things that you are trying to be. Think about how we use this word. Typically when we say what I intended was, we are saying that because it didn't go that way. So our intention is something that doesn't quite mesh with what we're experiencing. Our intention, on the other hand, and this is, some of you are probably like, what is this word? I made it up. So roll with it here. Your intention is the energetic contribution you want to be. This is what you want to be experiencing. This is the energy you are putting out into the world. So to give you an example, my intention with an E with this webinar is just to share information that might help you. My inner tension is that I want you to like that information and to like me. And since I can't see your faces and I have no idea if what I'm saying is resonating, you can probably imagine that my inner tension has a lot to say right now. So I'm going to walk my talk here and I'm going to ground myself in my intention, which is joy, connection, and sharing. What is your holiday intention? What is the energy you want to contribute and experience this holiday? I don't know what your answers are, but I am willing to bet that not one of you is going to say that the energy you want to experience this holiday season is stress, disapproval, perfectionism, pressure. Let's see if we can open the chat here. Yeah. So noticing, great noticing there, Jenny, when guilt is in the space, you know that burnout is not far behind. Peace and calm. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The energy you want to experience, your intention. You might take a moment to write down for yourself or share in the chat, what is your inner tension? What's pretty predictable for you? The guilt, the proving something, maintaining everybody else's joy, like running around being responsible for everybody else. That's the inner tension, versus joy might actually be your intention, the energy that you want to experience. So holiday tip number one, to sum this up here, is to ground yourself in your intention and not your inner tension. Yeah, this trying to be all things to all people is a big one, right? So let's take a moment here. Now that you kind of have a distinction of what the difference is, take a moment to close your eyes. And I know a lot of you may be in the middle of your workday. This is a good moment to practice remembering that sometimes the best way to get more done is to take a moment to do absolutely nothing. So close your eyes right here, right now. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the chair underneath you. Take a breath, inhale. Release it, exhale. One more time, inhale and breathe into your heart. Breathe into whatever your intention is, what energy you want more of in the world. And then breathe out any of your inner tension. Imagine the month of December unfolding in the best possible way. What's that experience like? What do you want to experience through the completion of 2020 and into 2021? Open your eyes and either share in the chat or write in the notes, write notes for yourself that you can reflect upon all month long. If you could sum up your ideal holiday in one word, what would it be? Mine is definitely joy. See another joy coming in. Yes, that's a great theme if you're going to have a theme. Calm. Yeah. As you keep these coming, who would you have to be for yourself and other people to have it go that way? Slowing down. Yeah. From this place, continue to envision that ideal December. Who are you with? How are you spending your time and your energy? How does it feel? How does it feel emotionally, but also how does it feel in your body? I notice even talking about it right now, I feel this sense of slowing down. Feel like my heart rate has slowed down a little bit. My breathing has deepened a little bit. I went from feeling all of the energy being up here, from the shoulders up, to feeling the energy all through my body. I can feel my hands and feet again. So notice that for yourself as you envision your ideal December. What does it feel like in your body? I'm going to give you a few more questions and cues to write down for yourself. And then we're going to walk through some more practical tips and actionable items. But this energy and this experiencing is really an important part of the foundation. Without being clear on what you want to experience, you're likely just going to experience more of the same predictable stuff that you tend to get into every year that had you get on this webinar in the first place. So continue to envision that ideal. What is handled that's having it go according to your ideal vision? What's handled? What did you let go of? What have you accomplished or created that has you present to joy, family, slowing down, appreciating, calm? Who has supported you? And to whom did you provide support? What expectations or pressures did you release? And answer this from your future self. You can answer this from your December 31st self. What did you release? What are you doing or not doing that has had December be full of joy, calm, peace? From your future self, what is different about this year than any other year that makes it stress-free and exhaustion-proof for you? Now, those were a lot of questions for you to consider, and I hope you'll continue writing down your answers to those. And I read them off fairly fast in service of time here. So if you want to reach out and get some more of those questions, or even share what comes up for you, I'll put my contact information at the end of this presentation, and I'm happy to share those questions and work with you on what you want to do with them. Now that you've gotten yourself clear on what your intention is and what an ideal December and holiday might actually look like for you, what will support us in having our reality match that vision? For most of us, a fundamental building block of the ideal life experience is well-being. This reminder that your self-care is actually a gift. I hear so many people say, oh, I feel selfish putting myself first, or I feel selfish doing this or doing that. And I know we had some questions about, non-negotiables in taking your personal time off and protecting that time. I would invite you to reframe all of those things as the biggest gift you can give yourself and to the people you care about. Staying healthy, nourishing yourself, getting it's the basics too. It's, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating food that actually nourishes you and makes you feel good? Are you indulging enough to have that sense of joy and holiday festivity without overindulging to the part that you're then totally taken out by it? You're tired, or you're hungover, or you just feel lethargic. So really genuinely taking care of yourself. Take some time right now to actually write down what your non-negotiables are around self-care. What does that mean for you? For me, it's getting 7.5 hours of sleep. It means I don't work on the weekends. I take weekends off to recharge, to sit on the couch and look at the decorations and the lights we put up and watch a cheesy holiday movie. Things like that. What are your non-negotiables that have you feel really cared for? What are your non-negotiables at work? What are your boundaries? Take a minute to write all that down. And again, feel free to share these things in the chat. I know a lot of you may be a little timid about sharing in the chat, but it's a really great way to contribute to everybody who's on the call. Since we can't see each other, it's nice to get that. Yes, exercise. Oh, that's great. I forgot that one. That's a really important one. Thank you, Nikki, for putting that in. Getting exercise. What a great way to take care of yourself. Yeah, the more you guys put in the chat, the more you can inspire each other. So please feel free to be generous with your feedback in the chat here. It's really helpful for everybody. So remembering that your self-care is a gift. Oh, beautiful. Meditation. Yes, even 10 minutes counts. Absolutely. A lot of us, it would be wonderful if we could say, oh yes, I meditate for 2 hours every single day. And then a lot of us look back and realize we have not meditated at all in the past week. So remembering that it doesn't have to be this big dramatic lifestyle change in December and in January. Let us not forget, January comes with its own pressure to make big drastic changes and all of this pressure. So even the small things can make a huge difference. Breathing 3 times deeply when you walk into or maybe even out of your office, that's fantastic. I think of self-care, here's another tip here, is filling your cup and letting it overflow. What I mean by this is that I think of our self-care and how we utilize our resources as a champagne tower. Not only because I enjoy champagne, but this analogy is beautiful. Think about, you are the top cup. You pour it in the top and it overflows and fills up all of the rest of the cups. So the general order is, of course, you're going to fill your own cup first. It's going to flow down and allow you to attend to your spouse or your partner at home. That's going to overflow and let you both, and if you're single or without a partner, skip over that part and go straight to the next one, which is going to let you show up for your career, show up for work, show up and give your best, so that you are then getting the resources you need to have it flow over and take care of your family, your kids, your pets, or even your friends. Usually the bottom tier here in our champagne flute tower is your social life. So self, partner, if that's applicable in your life, work, family, friends. That is the healthiest order of operations for how you utilize your time, your energy, your love, your money, any of your resources. So imagine yourself as the top champagne flute in the tower. Fill your cup and let it overflow. Next tip here, what can you create with others and not just for others? Now, I'm going to stop my screen share here for a second. I heard a parent friend of mine talking about how she feels a lot of pressure to create this experience for her kids. I have to create this for them. And we took a moment to think, but what is it you want to create with them? And this kind of echoes what we talked about earlier about feeling responsible for everyone else's experience versus letting everyone else be responsible for their own experience, but realizing that for a lot of us, the holidays really are about connection and about togetherness or family or being a little more open than we might be mindful of during the rest of the year. So what can you create with people? A question that I like to ask to help access what this might look like is, if you had nothing to prove, you only had your own life, your one precious life to experience, what would you be creating? Nothing drains a human faster than having to be all things for all people. Some of you have an inner tension in your life that says there's a work you and a home you and a friend you and a parent you. Consider that coming from love and coming from that end tension that you saw earlier in the conversation, coming from that actually allows you to essentially be the same you everywhere. Fear builds walls. It has you micromanage yourself or try to manage other people's emotions and reactions. Fear has you walk around in self-defense mode. Love honors boundaries. What I mean by that is that love knows it's okay to say yes or no. Love knows when a firm no is the kindest possible answer. Love knows the difference between being generous and being a martyr. If it's killing you, it's coming from fear, not love. It's a good way to maybe decide on some of your activities or your schedule. Fear says, I have to do it all, and I have to do it all by myself. Love says, we're in this together. So when you notice yourself feeling like you have to run around doing things for everyone else, take a moment to pause and ask, what can I create with my family, my friends, my kids, my partner, my colleagues? And this goes not only for the tangible results, the gifts or the food or the report that's due, whatever it is, but it also goes for the energy and the experience. So many of us, especially overachievers, we chase after results, but what we're really looking for is the experience those results will provide. So notice for you, what is it that you're chasing? Practice allowing yourself to have the experience of that, whether the result is there yet or not. Another big tip, this one's a biggie. Let me share my screen again. Own your story so it doesn't own you. We all have these stories about who we need to be at work or at home, as a parent, as a friend, as a man, as a woman. We have all these stories. Where I experience this and where I hear others experience this the most during the holidays is when we go home to our family of origin. A lot of old stories come up there before our conscious mind even realizes it. We start to relate to ourselves and to our family members as if it's 20, 30, 50 years ago. I always laugh and say, before I consciously realized that that's what was happening for me, it didn't matter how old I was. I would walk into my parents' house and suddenly feel like Tom Hanks at the end of Big. You know what I mean? Where he's like shrinks back down to a kid. It was like, I feel like I'm an 8-year-old in these grown-up people clothes. What is this? Why do I feel this way? And before I knew it, I was poking fights with my little brother, and my dad and I were arguing over what I decided to wear to dinner. I mean, it's preposterous when you sit back and watch it, but we all do some version of this. If you aren't really consciously choosing to relate to your loved ones as who they are today versus who they were for you way back when, whether it's the last time you saw each other or, like I said, this subconscious thing that happens where we suddenly relate to people as we did when we first met them. And with our families, that might be who we related to them as when we were 5. Suddenly you have your 5-year-old self deciding how your holiday is going to go, which may bring some fun and some play, but could also bring a lot of things that just really aren't reflective of who you are as a leader here and now and today. This is also going to show up at work. Anything that shows up with your family of origin is going to get poked at in a professional setting as well. So know what your story is, own it, be with it, so that it doesn't own you and subconsciously run in the background. Does that make sense for everybody? Anybody who's having some insights about this one or noticing who you tend to be when you revisit revisit home or hometown. And of course, this year that might not be what our holidays look like. Some of us are not visiting anywhere right now, but I'd be willing to bet that if you're on a Zoom call with some of your family members, this stuff shows up too. Next tip. This is a good one for overachievers. Your soul goals, that's hard to say, soul goals versus your e-goals, your ego goals. What I am referring to here are, again, those goals that you set up for yourself because of something you think you should do. Your shoulds might include work milestones, financial milestones, having the cleanest, most beautiful home that shows up in the Zoom background so everybody thinks that you have the most impressive house, things like that, things that our ego tends to get pretty attached to. It's very normal and it's all totally fine, but it adds a lot of pressure and sometimes has us show up in a way that we know doesn't feel fully authentic, or the goal feels a little bit hollow. So these are the kind of goals that even after you achieve them, you are not having the experience of your life that you swore that your ego said it would have you experience. One of the most popular, this will definitely come into play for a lot of us in January, is if I could just lose those 10 pounds. That's an ego goal for most of us, not across the board. For some of us, that's a soul goal. What a soul goal sounds like is more along the lines of, if I am regularly, routinely taking care of my body, if I am working out, if I am eating food that nourishes me, my body is naturally going to respond to that in a way that has my outsides reflect how deeply I love myself on the inside. That's a soul goal version that might get you this, the same or a similar result, but it's not from, if I lose 10 pounds, I'll look better, then more people will like me, and then everything will be great. If you are a person who's been through a weight loss journey, you know that it doesn't always actually feel that way or go that way. The weight loss one is a fairly, I think, easy and obvious example of this, but this shows up in so many ways with our ambition. One of the questions that came in pre-webinar was around, how do you balance contentment with ambition in a healthy, meaningful way, which is such a beautiful question. Whoever submitted that question, thank you. It's a really great one. And this is the tip that I have around that. Identify, when it comes to your ambition, when it comes to what you see for yourself, what you long to create in the world, who you want to be in the world, is it coming from something that is already within you, that is just destined to get out? Or is it coming from something external outside of you that your ego has convinced you is the route to joy or peace or calm or happiness? My personal version of this that I've shared, some of you may have heard me talk about this before. I worked as an opera singer for many years before I became a coach. And I realized the more successful I got, the less happy that I was, the more unhappy, disconnected that I felt. And I finally realized I had set an entire career goal. I had built an entire career from my ego, from thinking, if I can just make it to that next gig, that next theater, if I can just sing at the Met, that will mean that I matter and that I can be joyful and then I can be at peace with myself. And of course, it didn't go that way. The soul level goal for me turned out to be, who can I be? How can I use my voice in a way that helps more people access joy and helps them access their own divinity and who they actually are? The path that I took to get to that soul goal looks very different than what my ego said it was. So take a moment to reflect on that and ponder what your version of that might be and how it relates to how you set up the holiday. What does your ego need from the holiday versus what your soul needs or already knows to be true about your holiday? If you can stay present to the honest answers to those, you will very naturally start to balance contentment and ambition. Last tip that I have for you today is gratitude. Living life outside of the shoulds and inside what's good. I love a good rhyme or alliteration over here at Kacey Cardin Coaching. But I saw some of you put it in the chat, practicing daily gratitude. As it's one of those where I feel like it's such a cliche coach thing to say, but it really does make a difference. And there is neuroscience and research behind showing that gratitude actually creates the strongest energy and the most positive energy out of all of the emotions, out of all of the states of being. Gratitude has the most positive impact, not only on your nervous system, on your emotions, on your mood, but also on the people around you. You will notice that your energy really does rub off on other people. When I was a kid or a teenager, my mom used to say, remember that if a glove falls in mud, the mud doesn't get glovey. The glove gets muddy. She was sharing that with me so that I would stop hanging out with a guy who she thought was a bad influence. But I laughed about this with her the other day because I said, I'm actually learning in my work that the mud can get glovey. It truly can. If you can get in touch with your joy or with your gratitude or with your sense of peace and calm, and you bring that into a room that's full of stress or tension or hustle and bustle, it may take some time. It may take, it may not be an instant shift, but that energy that you bring in, gratitude or joy or love, actually has been shown to be measurably stronger than some of the other emotions or energetic states. So be the be the glove that gets, be the mud that gets glovey. But really pay attention to who you're showing up as for people, and know that gratitude is actually one of your strongest access points, one of your most powerful access points. So structurally, a practical way to put that into play in your life is, of course, starting or ending, or both, starting and ending your day with a list of 3 things you're grateful for. Or anytime you feel yourself getting stressed or feel yourself pulled to do the overachieving, overwhelmed thing, take a minute just to pause and say, okay, what am I grateful for right now? It's really simple. It will take a moment to be mindful of it. If it's not your current habit, it will take some time before it becomes a habit. I suggest setting an alarm on your phone, setting a random alarm to go off at different times of the day that just says, what are you grateful for? Something like that, or put a Post-it note on your wall or on your computer that says, what are you grateful for? Better yet, involve an accountability buddy and say, hey, can you text me once a day and say, oh, great, somebody says there's an app here. That's great. An app called Gratitude that reminds you. That's perfect. Thank you. I didn't know about that one. I'm going to have to download that myself. But something like that gets you present to it and breaks up what's predictable about your day. If you can do this on a daily basis, your entire month will go differently, no doubt. So here is a final screen share here of my 7 holiday tips for creating a stress-free, exhaustion-proof holiday, even in 2020, even for all of us overachievers. Some of them may sound very simple. What I would invite you to consider is the ones that you feel the most resistance to, or the ones that you look at and say, nah, that can possibly make a difference for me. That's probably the one that's the most important for you to practice. This is one of those things that when our ego or our defense mechanisms catch a whiff of this in our life, it tries to shut it down immediately, because it's going to have us do something that breaks up the automatic, predictable pattern. And even though for us on a heart and soul level, it's going to break it up so that we have access to more of that joy and love and calm that we want. For your caveman brain or your reptile brain, or however you choose to think about it, that can be really scary because it's just not what you're used to. You may be used to December being a very fast-paced, hectic, stressful time of year where everybody feels burnt out and disappointed. If that's what you're used to, it's gonna feel scary to break that up. But I am sure you can agree with me that it is 100% worth it. So let's put up one more poll here. Tell us about what your ideal holiday looks like. what best describes your ideal holiday? And we've got some overachiever classics on there for those of you who are really attached to it. Beautiful. Got a lot of love, a lot of connection, a lot of joy. Yeah, some peace, some rest. Here we go. All right, we got some to-do lists. We got some checking off the boxes here too. That is totally fine. Anything you choose here is 100% okay. It's just a moment to again allow you to get present to what is actually your ideal and what you want to create so that you can do exactly that. Wonderful. Joy comes out as the, pretty clear winner here. So I wish you all a very joyful holiday. I'm going to put up my contact information in case any of you have any questions, want a copy of these slides or of these tips. And before we go, I want to leave some time for question and answer. I tried to answer a lot of the questions in the content here, but I know some of you had some more specifics. So I want to leave time for that. And then contact info, feel free to email me. The @Kacey Cardin Coaching is for all of the socials, the Instagram and the Facebook, and then a website if you want that.
Yes, perfect. So send in those questions if you have any in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we utilize these last 15 or so minutes with Kacey.
And let me double check some of the questions we got to see if there are any that that I see that I didn't answer yet. I know there was one about Zoom fatigue in here. That may, for some of you, be very holiday pertinent. You may be on more Zoom calls with your family and, people that you can't travel to go visit. So let's talk about that briefly while we wait to see if any other questions come in. One great way of that I found for combating Zoom fatigue is taking breaks. I think we all probably have practiced some of these by now, but taking breaks, switching your video off when you need to, and also hiding your self view on Zoom. I don't know if you all have heard that trick, but I was told that when you have your self view on, your brain works extra hard to check yourself out and make sure everything looks good. It's like looking in a mirror while talking to somebody at the same time, and your brain is kind of on overdrive trying to manage everything. So, and contact info, I will put something in the chat. So switch your self view off if you can, and also expand your Zoom to the full screen so that you're not trying to squint and look at these tiny little squares. And also so your brain is not trying to take in too much information at once. If you have Zoom over here and your inbox over here and YouTube over here, whatever you might have up, that can be really exhausting for both your eyeballs and your brain. So avoid multitasking on Zoom. Any other questions, especially holiday specific questions? Happy to take them, and also happy to hear what you all see for yourself. There's a big question for you. What did you learn in the last hour of your life that might actually be put into practice and help you have a more stress-free, exhaustion-proof holiday? Preferably, I know a lot of you look like you have some really good practices up. You're already doing some meditation, some gratitude. Hopefully you are setting work hours and boundaries for yourself. Yes, the champagne tower. It's always one of my favorites. That one really, I'll touch on that one a little bit more quickly because when I coach people around this, a lot of times people say, oh, well, I would have thought that my kids should come before my job, and things like that. The order of operations is by no means set in stone. It's not like you don't ever have a day where, let's say you have a sick kid at school. Obviously, you're going to have to put your child first before staying at work all day. In a case like that, you may need to shift things around. But as a general rule, you want to go self first, then pour into anybody that you live with, that you share your home space with. You probably imagine, if you're in a fight with your partner, or if you've been in an argument, it makes it really hard to show up and focus at work the next day, right? So you want to attend to yourself, your home, your inner circle, then to your work, so that you're generating the money and the resources you need to take care of other people, and then your friends out and about. For some people, depending on family relationships, those may be flip-flopped, and your friends show up more as your family than maybe your blood relatives do. And that's totally fine. If that's the case for you, focus on friends, and then your family can be the bottom tier. Got a question here from Dan around smoothing out current political disagreements with friends who are not. It's such a good question. And I have definitely heard a lot of people saying, I'm not sure if I want to go home for the holidays, or if I want to get on that Zoom call with my family, because we're still tense with each other over the election. One moment. My coaching around that actually goes back around to that intention conversation and the energy. A lot of times the content of a conversation like that can drastically shift how you show up and how you experience each other. If you can relate to that person as their intention, as their energy that they want to be, I also think of it as basically relating to somebody as the best of who they are. If it's somebody who's close to you, like you said, it's friends who are not distant. So this is somebody, I'm gonna imagine somebody who's pretty close in your life, who means something to you. Obviously, you care enough to want to smooth it out, right? So you have this person in your life because there's something about them that you really love. So being in a conversation where you are seeing them only as that thing, you are seeing them not as who they voted for, but you are seeing them as love, as connection, as the funny jokes they always tell, as the hug they gave you that time you were having a rough day, things like that, relating to them as who you know them to be. That can be really hard. I will tell you, I got a nasty message from somebody about wearing a mask last week. Like on Thanksgiving Day, I woke up to a really kind of a cruel text message from somebody who said, I can't believe you believe that those work, and here's my opinion on it. And I had a moment of feeling the feelings, of feeling insulted, of feeling shocked, and feeling surprised that the content of the message was pretty intense. I'm not going to lie. And I practiced this in that moment. I practiced remembering who this person was for me, thinking about how much I actually appreciate her voice, her passion, her care. I know her to be a very compassionate person. I know her to be somebody who really wants to see all people in the world be healthy and be supported and connected. So my response to her came as if she was talking to me from that place. Even though she wasn't, I talked to her as if she were. I don't know the difference yet that it made on her side, but I know for me that it got me back in touch with who I want to be in the world. And that's really all we can be responsible for, right? We can only be responsible for who we are and how we show up. Prefacing an interaction with, let's agree not to talk about politics. I think that's absolutely okay. I think if that has the conversation stay inside of the type of relationship you want to have, I think that's sometimes the best way to do it, especially over the holidays. And knowing that right now we're all still kind of in the impact of politics and that recent election. We're all still very in the impact of it. We're all still processing our own emotions and our own opinions and thoughts. And it's going to take some time for people to process it and really get back in touch with the bigger things that they're committed to, you know? So given a little bit of room to breathe. And yes, saying something like, let's agree to keep this particular topic off the table is a really nice way to set some boundaries, to do so with love. And a sentence like that, it's all about who you be about it. You know, if you come at it from a place of, well, we're not going to talk about that, that's going to land very differently than, hey, I really love you and want to have a good time. Can we agree to just not talk about this particular topic right now? Probably going to go very differently. So I hope that's helpful, and hope that gives you something to take to your particular situation, Dan. Yeah, and I imagine a lot of people are in that too. So thank you so much for putting that in. And Sarah Whitney, I saw you put contact info in. Yes. Okay. And oh yeah, I almost forgot. I'm going to offer all of you who are here a complimentary 30-minute holiday support session. I almost forgot. It's the best part. So any of you who have some more questions about that, or who have had something come up, or who just know you want to set the holiday up to be as joyful as it can be, and maybe even get some support around how to effectively wrap up your year and how you want to set up 2021, reach out, set up some time. I'm actually going to put a calendar link in here for anybody who wants that, to make that incredibly easy and simple for you. And if for any reason you don't see a time that works for you, feel free to reach out, email, and let me know, and I'll carve out some extra time.
I cannot tell you all how much I've loved talking to Kacey. She's been very kind to me in that when we are working on Vanderbilt initiatives, and then she gives me like a free 15 minutes. So, and I always feel just 10 times better after talking to Kacey. And I hope you all feel that just enlightened. I feel like a breath of fresh air now, just hearing these tips going into the holiday. It is a different year. We can't, say that enough, but that doesn't mean that those normal feelings and overachieving and holiday madness, if you will, still can creep up. So these were great tips and just realms to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves in a year that has been quite hard for many. So Kacey, thank you so much for helping us clear our minds and just get ready for the holidays and be centered and find the reason for the season, if you will, and enjoy that joy and peace and family and connection, everything that you mentioned. Thank you to our audience for putting things in the chat. I know that this is an interactive session and we're still figuring out the technology behind it to facilitate these good conversations. So I just dropped a feedback request. Would love to hear your thoughts about both this topic, but also what can we provide in 2021? What career topics do you want to hear? And as we are learning in this technology world and working from home and everything, we're still working on our technology. So if you have any insights, please let us know as we are trying to evolve and provide you with the best opportunities that we have. I will later this week be filling in or sending you all an email with Kacey's contact and hopefully the archived link. Hopefully it'll be ready in time with this webinar. But if y'all need anything, please let me know. Reach out to Kacey. I'll make sure that her contact information is in that email as well as in the chat. But I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. I hope that you can catch up on rest and we can all just go into 2021 with a breath of fresh air and knowing that things will turn up soon.
Thank you, Sarah Whitney.
Of course, I hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Have a great day, everybody. Have a good holiday.